before the Great Wall, before the Forbidden City. Before an emperor ever wore the color yellow, there was a river, and there was mud, and there were bones that spoke to the dead. 4,000 years of dynasties. 900 emperors, give or take. Kingdoms that rose like tide and fell the same way. This is the story of China told not as a timeline, but as a heartbeat. Because if you listen closely, it never really stopped beating. Around 2070 BCE, in the river valleys of what is now central China, a dynasty is said to rise, the Xia. We call it semi-legendary, because history hadn't yet learned to write itself down. But the stories persist. A king named Yu who tamed the great floods, who earned his throne not by blood, but by labor. Then came the Shang, and with them, China's first true written word. Priests took the shoulder blades of oxen, the shells of turtles, and burned them until they cracked. In those cracks they read the will of heaven. We call them oracle bones. They are the earliest Chinese writing ever found, a bridge of smoke between the living and the dead. The Shang built walled cities. They cast bronze vessels so intricate that modern metallurgists still study how it was done. And they ruled by a belief that would haunt every dynasty after them, that heaven itself chooses who sits the throne, and heaven can change its mind. In 1046 BCE, the Shang fall, and the Zhou rise with a new idea, one that will outlive every empire built on it: the mandate of heaven. A ruler governs only because heaven allows it. Flood, famine, defeat in war, these are not accidents. They are heaven withdrawing its hand. The Zhou dynasty stretches nearly 8 centuries, the longest in Chinese history, but its final centuries are its bloodiest. This is the age of the spring and autumn period, then the warring states, when China fractures into rival kingdoms devouring one another for supremacy. And yet, from this chaos, wisdom, Confucius walks these broken roads, teaching that order begins not with armies, but with virtue. Laozi, if he ever truly lived, whispers of a different order entirely, the Tao, the way that cannot be named. 2 philosophies born from the same collapse, and both will outlast the throne they were born under. In 221 BCE, out of the warring states, one kingdom swallows the rest. Qin, its king, takes a new title one no ruler has claimed before. Huangdi, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, does not simply conquer China, he reforges it. One currency, one script, one law, applied without mercy. He links and extends walls along the northern frontier, the first strokes of what will become the Great Wall. And when he fears death, he does not pray for mercy. He builds an army instead, 8,000 soldiers of clay, buried in formation beneath the earth, to serve him in the next life. They wait there in silence for over 2,000 years. His dynasty lasts barely 15 years. Tyranny burns fast. But the shape of China, unified, centralized, singular, that shape never unmakes itself again. From Qin's ashes rises the Han, and China finds its truest name. Even now, the majority ethnic group of China calls itself Han. That is how deep this dynasty roots itself into identity. For 4 centuries, the Han stretched China's reach westward, opening trade routes that will one day be called the Silk Road, silk moving west, in exchange for horses, glass, and ideas moving east. Buddhism enters China along this road, quiet as a rumor, and it will never leave. Confucianism becomes doctrine, the philosophy of a broken age transformed into the operating system of empire. Scholars now earn power through examination, not bloodline alone, an idea radical enough to survive 2,000 years in one form or another. But even golden ages end. The Han fractures and China enters centuries of division, the 3 kingdoms, then the tangled, warring courts historians simply call the period of disunion. Beautiful poetry is written in this broken time. So is a great deal of blood. In 581, the Sui dynasty reunifies a broken China and pays for it with an obsession. Emperor Yang orders the Grand Canal built, a waterway stretching over 1,000 miles, connecting China's north to its south. It remains, to this day, one of the largest engineering feats in human history. But the cost in labor, in lives, in rebellion collapses the Sui within 4 decades. What follows is arguably China's most luminous age. The Tang dynasty, beginning in 618, opens its capital Chang'an to the world. Persian merchants, Korean monks, and Arab traders walk streets lit by lantern glow. Poetry flourishes. Li Bai and Du Fu write verses still memorized by Chinese schoolchildren today. Buddhism reaches its cultural peak. Women hold unprecedented influence, including Wu Zetian, the only woman to rule China as emperor in her own name, not as regent, not as consort empress in title and fact. For nearly 3 centuries, Tang China is arguably the most powerful, most cosmopolitan civilization on Earth. After a brief fracture, the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms, China reunifies once more under the Song in 960. This is not an age remembered for conquest. It's remembered for invention. Movable type printing spreads knowledge faster than ever before. The compass, refined for navigation, sends Chinese ships further than any prior fleet. And gunpowder, once used for fireworks and ritual, begins its transformation into a weapon of war. An invention that will eventually reshape the entire world. Song China builds the largest cities on Earth at the time, Kaifeng alone housing over 1 million people. Paper currency appears for the first time in human history. This is a civilization innovating faster than its armies can defend it, and to the north, a new power is watching. Horsemen from the steppe. In 1271, something happens that has never happened before. A foreign power conquers all of China and sits upon its throne. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, founds the Yuan dynasty, and for the first time, Han China lives under Mongol rule. Kublai moves his capital to Beijing. He welcomes foreign merchants, among them a Venetian named Marco Polo, whose accounts of the Khan's court will astonish Europe for centuries. Trade across the Mongol Empire's vast territories flows more freely than ever, connecting China to Persia, to Russia, to the edges of Europe itself. But Mongol rule sits uneasily on Han soil. Resentment simmers for nearly a century. And in 1368 it finally breaks. A peasant-born rebel named Zhou Yuanzong drives out the Mongols and founds the Ming dynasty, a name that means, fittingly, brilliant. Beijing becomes home to the Forbidden City, a palace of nearly 1,000 buildings, its rooftops glazed in imperial yellow, forbidden to any eye but the emperor's court. Early in this dynasty, something extraordinary happens. Admiral Zheng he commands treasure fleets, ships larger than anything Europe would build for another century, sailing as far as East Africa. 7 voyages of diplomacy and awe. Then, just as suddenly, the voyages stop. China turns inward, and the moment when it might have ruled the seas quietly closes. The Ming rebuild and extend the Great Wall into the stone dragon we recognize today, less a single wall than a network of fortresses, watchtowers, and beacon fires stretching thousands of miles against the northern threat. But by the 17th century, corruption, famine, and rebellion hollow the dynasty from within. And beyond the wall, in Manchuria, a new power is gathering its horsemen. In 1644, the Manchu people crossed the wall and found the Qing, the last dynasty China will ever know. For a time, they preside over one of the largest empires in Chinese history, doubling its territory, presiding over a population boom that reshapes the nation. But the 19th century brings a reckoning the Qing cannot survive. Opium, sold aggressively by British traders, floods Chinese ports. When the Qing resist, war follows the Opium Wars and China loses. Hong Kong is ceded. Foreign powers carve out spheres of influence along the coast. Rebellion tears the interior apart. The Taiping Rebellion alone claims more lives than most wars in human history. By 1912, the child emperor Puyi abdicates. 2,000 years of dynastic rule Xia to Qing ends not with heaven's mandate, but with a republic's decree. 9 major dynasties. 4,000 years. Empires that split like river deltas and rejoined like tide. And through every collapse, every conquest, every foreign horseman who ever sat the dragon, thrown something in this civilization refused to disappear. Not the dynasty. Not the emperor. But the idea underneath it all that order can be lost, and order can be found again. The throne is empty now. But the river still moves.